Hi, I'm Sandra Siegel, and I'm an ASU graduate student of social work, and I'm an intern at UCED.
And I'm Wendy Warren, and I am the project coordinator for our Career Pathways to Arizona's Future. And today we're going to be talking about financial fitness. And we have Sandra, who is going to be speaking, who is our intern. We also have Kevin, who has been here previously. He is one of our peer mentors, as well as Gabe. And he's also going to be assisting. And then we also have Haley Toman. And Haley, do you want to introduce yourself real quick? And then we'll move right into Sandra's presentation.
Sure. My name is Haley Thoman. I am the Associate Director at Direct Center for Independence, and we offer a money management class. So I'm going to present part of that today.
Thank you so much, Haley. Okay, Sandra, you are up, and I think Jeff has your presentation in order to be able to get us started. So in just one moment here, we'll have our share screen, and you'll be ready to go.
Okay, so good morning, everybody. Today, I would like to chat with you about budgets. And what is a budget? Well, really, a budget is about how much you earn, which is your income, and how much you spend, and that would be your expenses. And what would be some ways of earning money? Well, maybe a job, babysitting, chores, allowance, or birthday money. So, and what are some ways that you could spend money? Well, you could go to the mall, you could go shopping, or you could spend money on entertainment. And budgets can be for a week, a month, or a year. But today, we're going to focus on a monthly budget. And has anybody here ever heard of a budget? No. Wendy, if I don't see a question in the chat, could you please remind me or interrupt me?
Looks like Jessica Miller has heard of a budget.
I have.
Oh, okay. Well, has anybody else ever heard of a budget? Well,
I heard of it.
Next slide, please.
Put it in the lap.
This is an example of a budget. And the link to this slide is in the chat. I will be talking about the information in this slide for the rest of this presentation. Next slide, please. So a budget is a plan. It's a plan that you write down to decide how you want to spend your money. A budget helps you make sure that you will have enough money to spend each month. And without a budget, you might run out of money before you get your next paycheck. A budget will show you how much money you make and how you spend your money. It helps you decide what you must spend money on and where you can spend less money. Does that make sense? Okay, next slide.
Yes.
All right. A budget involves making a plan for your money. It gives you control and it gives you freedom because you get to decide where your money goes. It's like an action plan. It helps you achieve your goals. It's, for example, like buying a bicycle. Budgeting is about planning the way you spend your money. Okay. Does that make sense? Next slide, please. One trick about creating a budget is to spend less money than you earn. And if you do that, you'll keep your budget real simple. Next slide, please. So let's talk about creating a budget. And budgeting to zero before the month begins means that your income, you take your income and subtract from that all of your expenses until you get to zero. Every month will be different. Some months you will buy more holiday presents, and other months you might buy more back to school supplies, and some months you might buy more birthday presents. So every month is different, and you start your budget by listing all of your things that you buy with the ones that you have to buy, your most essential items first, like food, rent, clothing, transportation, and then money that you have for emergencies, money that you would like to save, and money that you donate to charities, and last of all, your fun money. Next slide, please. So you can create a budget if your income is irregular or inconsistent. You would budget based on your low earning month, your lowest earning month, and you list all the things you buy and the things that are the most important, like your food and rent and clothing first, and list all the things you buy. And then ask yourself, if you had a really horrible month and you could only buy one thing, what would that be? And put a number 1 next to that item. And then list your second priority and put a number 2 next to that item. And go through your budget, making things, and you mark things in the order of importance. That way, when you get paid, you will know exactly where your money's going. Okay, are there any questions? Does that make sense? Okay, next slide, please. Let's talk about debt. Debt is money that you owe other people, and it's very important to pay off all your debt. And one way of paying off your debt is by making budget cuts. Making budget cuts is the same thing as saving money. And for example, you can do that by not going to the mall, not buying clothing, and don't eat out. But don't worry, because budget cuts are only temporary and you can go back to spending later on. Make your budget part of your monthly schedule so that you will have time to update it and make changes. And that way your budget will help you know what to expect and when to expect it.
Sandra, there's a question in the chat box from Kelsey. She asks, should we write it down in our budget?
But my name's Mikkel. I don't know why it said Kelsey on it.
The answer is yes. You should write it down in your budget.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Next slide, please.
And then Sandra, we also had one individual, Billy, stated that a basic example of budgeting is checking the amount of your money within your account before and after you're purchasing a product. That way you can make sure that you do have enough money in your account.
That's a wonderful thing, a wonderful idea. Yes. Thank you for that. Okay, so tracking your progress. Tracking your progress is the same thing as checking your progress. And track your progress to, for example, maybe you are already spending less money and saving more. And it's a good idea to put a small amount of money aside for unexpected things. That way, you will not spend money that you wanted to spend on something else. If that happens a lot, then then you should keep track of those unexpected things because you might want to include them in your budget. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so if you are constantly spending money or overspending on your fund money, then use cash. And all you have to do is go to the bank, pull out the cash amount that you budgeted for fund money, and once that cash runs out, stop spending. Does that make sense? Okay, next slide, please. Goals. So have goals and know why you made those goals. For example, some important reasons for having goals are so that you stay motivated and so that you can check your progress, and because having goals helps you reinforce to yourself exactly what you want. All right, next slide, please. I have a short 2-minute video, and this video will bring together all the information that I just spoke about. Enjoy.
More items on your to-do list than hours in the day? If you're in college, you know exactly what we're talking about. But there's one thing you should never be too busy to do, and that is taking time to make a budget. A budget is a financial plan that will help you make smart spending choices today while preparing for tomorrow. Budgeting will help you achieve your goals and prepare you for unexpected bumps in the road. So what goes into making a budget? First, you'll need to track your income and expenses for a particular period of time, such as a month. You can use pen and paper, a spreadsheet, or a budgeting app. After that, making your budget comes down to a simple equation: what you earn minus what you spend. To determine your income, include items such as wages earned at work, allowances from family, and student financial aid such as grants or scholarships. To determine your expenses, include items such as tuition, books, rent, credit card payments, and car payments. Then simply subtract your expenses from your income. Are your earnings greater than your spending? If so, you could choose to invest, buy a new cell phone, or simply save for a rainy day. But what if you spent more than you earned? If that's the case, it's time to cut back on your expenses and balance your budget. You may also need to find a way to increase your income. Remember, everyone's budget is unique and it will fluctuate from month to month, so use a budget and be mindful of your daily expenses. That way you can make sure you're spending your money on things that really matter to you. When you budget, you decide where your money goes instead of wondering where it all went. And there you have it, the basics of a budget. Now it's time to create your own. Go to studentaid.gov/budget to get started.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jeff. So Sandra, thank you for that presentation, sharing information in regards to being able to build a budget and all of what folks will need to know to get started. I know that we had attached and offered to everybody a fillable budget form. That's so that you're able to utilize this and you're able to kind of practice in the way that works for you and have a simple form to be able to use to get going on that. And as we've mentioned before, if you folks have questions later on and you want to reach out in order to be able to get more information, you're more than welcome to reach out. Okay, and I'm going to work to be able to assist you the best I can. So at this point, we have Gabe and Kevin, and I have spoken to them in the last week or so, 2 weeks, and let them know what we were going to be talking about today. And each of them shared that, yes, they had some information that they wanted to share, just some certain tips and points that stood out that they thought of when I mentioned to them that we were going to talk about finances today. And so at this point, I'm going to ask Gabe if you would come forward and unmute and share your information with us.
Okay. The first thing to do when you have a job and earn a check is to open a bank account. You can ask your parents to help you to save money and also open this account. Some banks offer a debit card, which can make it very easy to spend your money. It's always important to know how much you have in our account before using the card. I decided not to have a debit card. Direct deposit has when your employer puts your check in your savings account. This is helpful when saving money. Don't spend it all. Save and collect it. You can be happy about this because it helps you save for items you want and need.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Gabe. I really appreciate you offering those informational tips. I'm wondering, does anybody in our, any of our participants have any questions up to this point before Kevin shares his information? And feel free to use the chat or raise your hands. We know you've had practice with these types of things. You're pros at this point. Okay, it looks like we don't have any questions for you, Gabe, at this point, so thank you.
You
I have a
do.
question.
Oh,
There's a
I
question
do. I
for
have a
Question.
Michaela.
thank you.
So do we write it down to a budget of how much we're spending and what item are we buying as?
Mm-hmm. That's right. So what you want to be doing is you want to be tracking your expenses. So you would take like one period of time. Sandra was talking about it being a monthly budget. You could also do a week. You could pick a day, right? Either way, just what we want you to do is get an idea as to how you're spending your money. Sometimes we're spending more money on things than we really think that we are, meaning things are costing us a lot more than maybe we think that we are spending. And so therefore it's easy to be able to understand how much money you have and how much you can spend by writing things down, because you start to learn what your own patterns are.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah, and that's really important because you guys have had folks helping you managing your money up until now. We want to be able to help you learn how to be able to start doing this for yourself so that you're able to be successful. So I see Noah has a question also. Noah, feel free to unmute and share, and if you'd prefer, you can put it into the chat box.
Are you coming? I'm sort of nervous.
It's okay, no reason to be nervous. We're all friends here.
I'm sorry that I don't have a computer.
You don't even have a computer, Noah?
What's your question for us, Noah?
I can explain that, but I keep hearing noise. If you wanna hold something that I need to say, if you budget the money, it's mostly the stuff that you need first, like your food bills.
Okay, so I hear you saying that you want to pay attention to your bills, such as your phone bill first, because you don't want to take the chance that you don't pay your bill and not have a phone, right? If there was...
And spend a little bit, but not all the time, yeah.
To write a budget.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you, Noah.
Okay, so I heard a portion of that, and I really feel that what Noah is sharing with us is that we want to take into account our bills, those priority items that Sandra had mentioned, and she said, so you're going to be putting a number 1, number 2, number 3, and prioritize where you really need to make sure that you don't forget to send out, and make payments. And then after that, if you have some money left at the end of the month, then you're able to have your fund money. Okay, thank you for your questions. I see that we also had somebody else say that it's important to be responsible with all of your money. So yes, absolutely, that has to happen. That's what we're trying to help you guys learn, is how to be responsible in order to manage your money effectively. So very good. Kevin, I know that you next had information that you wanted to share with everybody that is really important for folks to know as they're managing their own funds. Do you want to share with us now?
Yes. One thing I can say right away is there's a lot of different ways to save money, as well as maybe even make more money. The simplest thing you can do, which unfortunately may not help you save or make a whole lot of money, but maybe very little money. Every bank should have both a savings and checking account, and what a savings account does is every month they'll offer you what's called an interest, which is like free money, but it's only going to be like less than 1% extra of what is currently in your savings account. The next thing you can do that can probably help you save and maybe even earn more money, they're called savings bonds. They're basically, they look kind of like checks or bills, but what they do is when you purchase one and then you hold on to it, or have the bank hold on for it for, I'd say, about 30 years. And 30 years later, it'll end up being worth more than what you purchased for. I'd say about 2 times or maybe 3 times more at the most. The next thing you can do is it's called a 401k, and that's something that's like interest, but it's something that the certain companies you may work at may offer, where I guess it works in a similar way like banking interest, but it's much, much better. And then there's something called a Roth Ira, which is somewhat the same thing, but you get it from like relatives or maybe even friends that you may know. And then the best way to earn and save plenty of money for a lifetime is to try and get a job that works for like either the state, the county, or even the federal government, because what they do is they can offer you a certain percentage of salary from the time you start working at that company to a very long time, maybe after you retire. And yeah, again, there's lots of different ways to save and maybe even earn more money. But one thing to keep in mind is if you're going to do multiple version or multiple plans, then you have to be willing to take on more responsibilities. And by responsibilities, I mean like what you may have to deal with at work.
Okay, thank you so much, Kevin, for sharing that information. I really appreciate it. Did anybody else here have any questions in regards to what Kevin was sharing? I see Carly stated in the comments, money is very important. So that's very true. It helps us to be able to have a house over our head, right? And to be able to have the fun stuff that we like to get every once in a while. Any other questions? Comments? All right, I see a hand.
And money is very important to helping you count money and stuff like that.
Can you say again? I'm sorry.
So sorry. And it's helping you, and money can help you, really help you a lot by counting them and stuff.
As long as we know how much money we have in our account and we take the time to be counting it and paying attention, yes, it can be very helpful. When it runs low, that can be stressful. Yeah, very good. And I see JC says we have to be responsible with the amount that we spend. Absolutely. You guys are really listening to what folks are saying here. That's excellent. So at this point, we are going to have an opportunity to listen to Haley. So Haley is going to be sharing her presentation with us. And I just wanted to mention real quick so that you guys aren't worried about the spending of time while we're on our webinar this morning. We did have somebody reach out and ask in regards to our focus session. So our webinar this morning is running longer so that we're running into what would be our focus time. So it's just an extended webinar for today. So as we're listening to Haley, I don't want folks to get nervous about the time and all that. We're moving right along into that next scheduled amount of time. And we'll still follow through with doing the mentee and evaluations and all that afterwards. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Haley. And thank you so much.
Okay, bear with me. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, and as I mentioned, this is just a chunk of a bigger class that we have. So if it feels like, wow, I would really want to learn more about that, there's probably more to this. But this is just giving you a little taste of some of the stuff that can be covered when you think about money. So the presentation, we called it Independence Through Financial Fitness. And the goal of this presentation is to learn some new ideas about money and to feel more confident asking questions about your money. So if you don't completely understand all the topics discussed in this presentation, that's okay. The point is to get you asking more questions to the people around you, family members. You can even reach out to Direct and some other resources that we list at the end of this presentation. So the first thing, and a lot of this is going to be repetitive. We thought it would be okay if we kind of talk about the same things. Maybe it will hit you differently as a different person shares the information, but you want to think about needs versus wants. A need is something you must have to survive, and a want is something you might like to have but can live without. So some examples would be like a need would be a place to live, the rent you might have to pay, mortgage, you'd have to pay, food, clothes. And then a want would be like a vacation home, eating out, or like designer clothes, like really expensive. Maybe you're not shopping on the sale rack, you're going to like the department store and paying full price. So those would be wants. So once you kind of have figured out your needs and your wants, the things you have to pay, like your bills, the things that you're committed to, you want to think about the types of income that there are. And income is money that's coming in. So it's coming to you, and it can be earned or unearned. And we'll break that down a little bit more. So earned income is payment for doing a job. I think I heard Gabe say earlier that he gets a check, and it sounds like maybe his check is directly deposited. That means instead of getting a physical check, it just goes right to his bank account, which is super cool. But there's different types of earned income, and some of those would be a wage. So you make a certain amount of money an hour at a job. A salary is normally like an annual amount of money you make, and it gets broken down by each paycheck. You have people who earn tips. Tips are like when you go to a restaurant and you leave a little bit of money for them for bringing you your food, and they'll be like cleaning up the table and things like that. They took your order. So that's a situation where someone would make tips. And then commission, you see it a lot in sales jobs. So one that comes to mind would be like a car dealership. So you're working at a car dealership and your job is to sell cars. A lot of times the way that that person makes money, the only way they make money is if they sell a car. If they don't sell any cars, then they don't get any money. And that's when you make 100% commission. The only way you're getting paid is if you sell cars, and you make a percentage off of every car that you sell. So you tend to see commission more in like a sales type job. And all of that would be negotiated with you ahead of time. So you wouldn't accept a job and then be like, what? I have to sell cars in order to get a paycheck? Like, you should know that before you take the job. And I see things are going on in the chat, but I can't see the questions. If there are questions, is someone, Wendy, are you able to monitor?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So we have one person who mentioned that you could also sell your drawings in order to be able to make some money.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep,
Yep.
and
That's a great example.
then the only other comment that we did have in there is knowing how to count your money. Carly has stated that it's important to learn how to be able. She doesn't know now, but there's always an opportunity to be able to learn that.
Yes. Yep. Knowing how much you make and how to count it. Absolutely. There is a little bit of math in what we're talking about today for sure. So those are just some examples of making money. I love the comment that was shared of selling your drawings or different art that you put together. That's another great example of a way to have earned income. So unearned income is money received from sources other than a job. And some of those examples are government benefits, retirement pension. I think you guys heard Kevin kind of talking about 401ks and IRAs. And if you get a government job, you might get a pension, which is based off of your salary. So that would be some unearned income. Interest, I think Kevin also talked about that. And then gifts, maybe it's your birthday and somebody gives you some money. So that's the unearned income. And so what we're going to do now is kind of look at an example. Our example today is a month in the life of Miguel. I don't know Miguel personally, but we're going to take a look into his life.
Miguel.
Is there a question? No? So Miguel graduates from high school and his grandmother gives him a card with a check for $50 in it. Based on what we just learned about income type, do you guys feel like this is earned or unearned income? If you think it's earned, maybe do the yes. And if it's unearned, do the no. I don't know all your options. You guys are probably better at these reactions than me.
Under the reaction button on the bottom of your screens, you'll see where it says reaction, and that's where you would raise your hand. You also can do a thumbs up in order to say yes.
Was there like a yes or no? Maybe we could just say do a thumbs up if you think it's earned and do nothing if you think it's unearned. And I don't know if I can really see you all. Let's see if I can. Yeah, I made you guys a little grid. Sorry, I'm learning with you. So someone's doing a thumbs down.
Yeah.
Good job.
And then in the comments, we have some folks saying no, no.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so if you thought it was unearned, you're right. Miguel didn't have to do anything to earn that money. So it's unearned income. So weekend work. Miguel mows his neighbor's lawn for $10 an hour. He works an hour and a half, so the neighbor gives him $15. If you think this kind of income, this $15 is earned, give a thumbs up. And if you don't, then do a thumbs down.
I'm seeing a number of thumbs up, Haley.
Cool. Thank you for monitoring, Wendy.
Yeah, no problem.
So for those of you who thought it was earned, you are right. He worked, so this is money he earned. Other income. So as a disabled adult, Miguel receives a monthly check of $794 from the government to help with his basic living expenses. Is that check from the government earned or unearned? If you think it's earned, give a thumbs up.
I'm seeing some thumbs down. I'm not seeing any thumbs up. Feel free if you guys want to put it into the chat as well. That's okay too. Okay, so we have not at all and a no and a no.
Okay, well, you guys are like too good at this. It is unearned. So that's just money he receives to support his basic needs. So he didn't have to earn it. New job, how cool. Miguel lands his first part-time job after graduation, and it pays $11 an hour, and he will work 20 hours a week. Do you all feel like this is earned or unearned? If you think it's earned, you can put your comment in the chat, or you could give a thumbs up. If you think it's unearned, you could do a thumbs down. What are we thinking?
So we have one person in the chat who said earned, and then we have one person who said no. And I'm seeing a couple of thumbs ups on the screen.
Cool.
More thumbs up. Yep.
So you all are doing really well. You're right, it's earned. He has to work those hours in order to earn that money. So since it's job related, work related, it's earned income. So Miguel is interested in calculating what he'll make for the whole year. So since he earns $11 an hour and works 20 hours a week, the first thing he's going to calculate is his weekly pay. He takes that $11 an hour, multiplies it by the 20 hours a week he plans to work, and that gets him to $220 every week. If he can do those 20 hours, he doesn't take any time off, he's going to get the $220. And then to get his annual pay, he'll take that $220 and multiply it by the number of weeks in a year. So that's 52. So when he takes 220 and multiplies it by 52 weeks in the year, he gets $11,440. And this will help him as we move forward in our presentation with his budget, because he can kind of know what he expects to make, right? Are there any questions? Are we doing good? I can keep moving.
No questions in the chat box. We look clear.
Good. So just recapping his income sources, he has two earned income sources, the $15 a week mowing the lawn and the $220 a week with the new job. His unearned income is a one-time $50 check from grandma, and then the $794 a month from the government. So that's kind of just a snapshot of everything we just went over with Miguel's income. And it's good to think about all those different sources, because you might have more income than you realize, right? So now we go into different types of earnings. So we have gross earnings, which is the total amount of money earned. And if we go back to Miguel, that would have been the $220 a week. That's his gross earnings. So he makes $11 an hour. He's working 20 hours a week. So he's gonna have a gross earnings of $220 a week. So big question here. Will the check he receives be for $220? What do you guys think? Yes or no? Thumbs up if you think yes, thumbs down if you think no. I heard a yes.
I'm seeing a thumbs up, and then I have another thumb that's like a maybe halfway, not so sure. Okay.
Yes, missed.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, here's the
we have some not
surprise.
sures.
It's no.
Oh, no.
It's a bummer. Oh, he is not going to get a check for $220. And here is why. We'll get into it. The actual check will be less than the gross earnings because of taxes and other deductions that are taken out of the check. So what he actually walks away with is net earnings, not gross earnings. Your net earnings is the actual take-home pay after taxes, other contributions, and other deductions are removed. And some examples of those are federal and state income tax, Social Security, Medicare, and unemployment contributions. And then, as Kevin shared earlier, you might choose to have some deductions, like maybe you pay for your insurance out of your check, or maybe you decide to contribute to a retirement account. So all of that could be taken out of your check. Some are a choice, some your work will help you set that up. That way you're not stuck with owing a bunch of taxes at the end of the year, because that surprise is never fun. Nobody wants to think they have all this money and then be surprised by the government that they owe part of what they've been earning all year back to them. So your net earnings is what you get to take home and plan to spend. That's your budgeted amount, or the amount you should be using for your budget. So let's look at this in a different way. So for Miguel, he works 20 hours a week. He makes $11 an hour. So highlighted in purple there, it's $220 a week. So that's the gross earnings, but that's not the check he's gonna get. That's not the amount of money he gets to spend. Here's what is really gonna happen to his check. $33 is gonna get taken out for federal income tax. $5.70 will be taken out for Arizona income tax. $13.64 will be taken out for Social Security tax. And then $3.19 will be taken out for Medicare tax. So his net earnings will be $164.47. That's what he really can plan on spending. Does all of that kind of make sense? Hopefully.
I'm seeing a number of head nods from folks and a thumbs up.
Good. Oh, so I already gave you this answer. Which earnings should you use in your budget? I'm gonna test your memory right now. Should you use the gross for your budget or the net? If you want, do thumbs up for gross and thumbs down for net. Or put it in the chat.
I'm seeing a number of thumbs downs. And we've got in the chat, one person says gross. Then we have another individual who said net. And net.
Nice. Well, most of you guys have remembered correctly. You're going to want to use the net amount. You certainly don't want to spend money that really should have been given, to the federal government for taxes or the state for taxes. Like I said, nobody likes at the end of the year when they're doing their taxes to know they owe a ton of money. So now we're going to look at a sample 1-month budget. And as previously shared in the first presentation, I think I remember hearing something about budgets are very personal. So this is just a sample. If all of you spent time building a budget, they would probably all look different. each of our situations are different. You know, the money we have coming in and the things we need to spend our money on are different. So if some of this in my example today doesn't make sense to you, or you're like, gosh, I never have to pay for that, that's okay. It's just an example to show you what a budget could look like. So what you have at the top is in the top left corner is step 1, which is your needs. You want to identify those. And in this sample budget, we have the following items: personal care items from the drugstore, groceries from the supermarket, a doctor visit copay, rent, utilities, telephone, student loan payment, car repair. And then if you look over to the right, there's the first column, it's shaded in a purple. It's called planned spending. And so what that is that is someone projecting, what do I think I'm going to spend on all those things this month? And this is just like a monthly budget. You could have, like Wendy said, you could do a week or a day, or maybe you want to look at a yearly budget. But this is for a month. And I think that's pretty common. It's common for eventually people to kind of look at their finances monthly. But this is what they project that they're going to spend on each of those items. And so total for their needs, they think I'm going to spend $736.65. So then if you go on to the next step, step 2, that's this person's wants. And they want to spend money on Halloween party supplies, meals, eating out, concert tickets, and DVDs. So all those things aren't necessary for their life, but they like those things. And so they want to plan a little bit of money to spend on that as well. And so for total wants, if you back to that purple column, it's $130.70. That's how much they plan to spend on their wants. So as we go on to step 3, the expenses for this person's budget, total expenses will be their total needs and their total wants. So their total planned expenses for the month will be $867.35. Step 4, they put in their total monthly income, which is $950. And then the last part is the cash flow, which is their income, the $950, minus the total amount they plan to spend, the $867.35. So what they're planning to end up with at the end of the month is $82.65. So they actually have a little bit of extra that they could save. Maybe they want to take a vacation or just save for a future emergency. So they're doing pretty good. They haven't spent all their money. So then you get to the orange column, which is actual spending. And this is really important too. So you've created your budget, but now you've got to figure out, well, what did I actually do? Did I actually do what I planned, or did some things happen? And so for this person, they didn't need anything from the drugstore, so that's good, less spending, right? They spent a little less on groceries. Instead of 160, they spent 150. They were right on target with their doctor's visit and rent and utilities. They spent a little more on their phone. It looks like they spent an extra $10. Their student loan payment was what they expected, $50. But then they needed a car repair. So they actually had to spend $100 on a car repair that they budgeted nothing for. They didn't plan anything for that month. So their actual spending for needs that month was $829 instead of $736.65. So they went over in what they needed to spend this month, right? So that's okay. They get to step 2, their wants, and the actual spending. They decide, hey, I don't really need to buy Halloween party supplies right now. Halloween isn't until October. I'm not going to spend that $45. They probably got a little bit stressed out with having to have this car repair, and maybe they weren't able to make as many meals from home. So they spent a little more eating out. They spent $20, but their concert tickets were less money than they anticipated. So they only spent $30.50 on that. And they spent no money on DVDs. So they were able to kind of offset some of that car repair by not spending as much on their wants. And can you guys see that? So instead of spending $130, yeah.
Mhm.
Did you guys have a question? Instead of spending $130.70 on fun stuff, they decided to only spend $50.50 on fun stuff. So their total expenses were $879.50, and their income stayed the same. So they actually end up not spending all their money still. They did a really good job managing their emergency car repair because they still have $70.50 left over. Do any of you have questions about this, or was this an okay example? I'm hoping kind of seeing it this way might help. And your life might look different. You might be like, I don't own a car. I don't care about car repairs, but there could be other things in your life that you identify that, you know, an emergency could happen. So you want a little extra money to take care of it just in case. So that kind of wraps up my budget portion, and we move on to where to keep your money. So there's 2 major options, credit unions and banks. Some of the differences are listed here. Credit unions are nonprofit membership organizations. They usually offer lower fees and pay higher interest rates. Banks are for-profit businesses. They usually charge higher fees and pay lower interest rates. They may offer more services or branches though. And then this is just another way to look at some of the differences of a credit union and a bank. Both offer cashing checks for free, accounts available. Yes, you should be able to walk into either and open an account. Are they open to everyone? Credit unions do require that you're a member, and sometimes that does mean you pay a one-time like low membership fee. They both have ATM machines available. They both have online services. And honestly, I've seen quite a few have apps for your phone, which are very cool. Lower fees tend to be with credit unions, and they both have your account insured, meaning if they go under, your money is still safe up to a certain amount, and you'd want to talk to the bank about that to know specifically what they do. So there's 2 different types of accounts you might open. You could have a checking, which provides a way to pay bills. And then there's a savings, which provides a way to keep money safe for future use. And lots of people have both, you know, especially if you're trying to save up for something, you might have a checking account where your check is potentially deposited, or you put your check into your checking account, and then you're able to transfer a portion of that over to your savings. Some employers will even let you decide that you want to split your check. So maybe you have them put, let's say you're making $220, but you're walking away with 164 something. You might say, well, I want 100 put into my checking to cover my bills, but I want to save the 64. So put 64 into my savings. And if your employer offers things like that, you should be able to ask them how to set that up. And it does make it easy because it's, less trips for you to the bank or less online banking you have to do. But if you find you have an emergency and you need to pull some of that money from your savings over to your checking, it's all fairly easy to do online. Or you could walk into the bank and ask for help. So some considerations, and these are really just questions like if you go to set up an account, questions you could ask. So for a checking, is any interest paid on the money that's in there? Is a minimum balance required? Are there monthly charges or other fees? Sometimes if you can't maintain a minimum balance, there might be a fee. So you just want to ask them those questions so you pick the bank or credit union that's best for you and you know what to expect. For savings, what's the amount of interest paid? Is there a minimum balance required? Often to open a savings account, they might require that you put a certain amount of money in there to open it up. Is there a monthly transaction limit? So do they limit how many times you can put money into your savings? And are there any other fees? So these are all good questions to ask the bank or the credit union if you're going to open an account. I think Gabe spoke of debit cards and made the choice not to have one. So you definitely have a choice of whether or not to have one. It's a plastic card connected to your account and the money is subtracted from your account when you use it. Sometimes that can be a little tricky for people to manage because it's so easy. It's not like you're physically giving them cash. That just feels different. And you can see, okay, I had $20 and now I only have $5. Whereas with a debit card, it just doesn't really feel the same way, but it can make your life easier. But things to find out would be, are there fees? Can you use it in stores? So I know on my debit card, it has like a Visa symbol on it, and Visa is a pretty major credit card company. So my debit card, even though it's not a credit card, it comes out of my checking. Because it has that Visa symbol, it's accepted anywhere Visa is accepted, which means I can pretty much buy anything online. I can go to any store. I've never had an issue. But some debit cards, they don't have like a major symbol like that on there. So you're just going to want to find out, where can I use this? Because it should be adding convenience. If you're going to do it, it should add some convenience to your life. So then there's ATMs. That stands for automated teller machines. Those allow you to get cash. So if you go to one, you insert your card, your bank card, and typically put in your PIN. You'll have a unique PIN number that just you should know, and you can get cash out of the ATM. You can deposit checks and more. You can see what your balance is. I'll be honest, technology has come so far. I don't know that I've been to an ATM in a long time, but they exist and they're great, especially if the bank is closed and you need to get some cash or something like that.
Haley, I just wanted to mention one thing that we have Michaela who had written in the chat. It's easier to use the debit cards than it is real money at times. And I think that's maybe why we go back to Gabe saying he chose not to use a card because it can be too easy.
Right. That's why you got to keep an eye on your balance and things like that. but it can make your life easier because you might be able to buy stuff online. You know, you typically can go to most stores. I mean, you got to ask again because it'll have those symbols on there, but absolutely can definitely make life easier paying for things. Was there another question?
Yeah.
I got a question.
Sorry.
Kelsey, do you want to go first? I don't know if it's really Kelsey. I think
It's Michaela.
oh hi.
It changed my name. Me and Katie do have our card, our own our bank money, but we never use it. We never use it, so we just keep it safe just in case. And the reason why we got that money, it was from our movie money since we were babies. So we were babies. We were in movies before when we were babies.
Oh.
Yeah, if you see I Am Sam, if you see the background of a black woman and a baby, that is my mother and could be and one of me and Kenzie.
That's cool. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Was there another question? I think someone else. It was a gentleman. I thought I heard a gentleman's voice.
Anthony?
Hi,
Anthony, did you have a
Anthony.
question? Maybe not.
If anybody has a question too, you can always put it. Looks like something went in the chat. I see it blink, but I don't know what it says.
Michaela said thank you, and Jim said so cool.
Okay. Well, if more questions come up, feel free to put them in the chat or let us know. So I kind of alluded to this already, but online banking, you can do most of your banking online. It is possible to check your balances in your checking and or savings account, transfer money, deposit checks, pay bills, and set up a budget. Some of that banking software does have budget capabilities, so it's pretty cool. So this, I can actually follow up with you, Wendy, and make this slide into a PDF if anyone would find it helpful. But
Get for free online the bank.
Is it free to bank online? Is that the question?
Yeah, the money to put the online for the bank to you check the credit card. The reason.
I don't know. Do you have a question or was that a comment?
Comment.
A comment?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, thank you. So this is just a way that you could compare options. Like if you're looking for a banking option and you're not sure, some things to consider would be like, how close is the location to you? Is it free online banking? So these are things you'd want to ask. Minimum deposit amounts that are required in order for you to open up an account. Minimum balance to maintain, that way you avoid fees. Overdraft protection, so if you do on accident spend too much money, you know, what happens? Do they have overdraft protection? Do they have overdraft fees? All of these things, and it might feel like I'm giving you a lot to ask and to think about, but like I said, if it's helpful to have this document, I can turn it into a PDF and share with Wendy to share with you guys. But to ask, you know, do you have ATM fees, and when am I charged? A lot of times the bank's ATM is free, but like going somewhere else might have a fee. So just really understanding, that way you're not paying a lot of fees. knowing what kind of interest you get to earn on the accounts you own. Are there debit card fees? And then mobile check deposit fees or limits. And so what we set up here is if you go to like maybe the closest bank to you, you could ask these questions and list the answers in the purple column. And then if you go to maybe the closest credit union, you could ask these same questions and put them in the column next to the answer in that orange column next to each of those questions. And maybe you do an option 3, maybe there's another bank close to you or something. But that might help you compare if you can kind of see everybody's answers next to one another. So we're really getting to the end of my presentation here. Some additional resources. So if you feel like, wow, this was a lot of information and I want to know more, or I need help in setting up a budget, Direct does do that. So anyone with a disability is welcome to reach out to Direct and create a goal with us. Our family services also has some resources for families with school-age children experiencing homelessness, so it's pretty specific. And then Primavera Foundation also has a couple programs for mothers with children or for grandparents raising grandchildren. So I don't know if there's any last lingering questions, but I appreciate the opportunity to share this information with all of you.
Thank you very much, Haley, for offering all of your presentation and information. I know that's going to be very, very helpful to everybody who's on and listening. And also thank you for offering the resources so they can get in touch with these other folks for help, as well as with your agency and then with the USAID as well. Folks are more than welcome to be able to check in with us.